Good morning, students. Today we are going to begin our continuation of the chapter 1, Operating System. User interface. As we already know, interface is the point where two systems meet and interact with each other. Similarly, in computer, user interface refers to the hardware-software mechanism by which a user interacts with the computer to pass instructions to it. The operating system of a computer acts as an interface through which a user gives commands or instructions to the computer and also receives messages from the computer. Without operating system, interaction between a user and a computer is not possible. User interface is the system by which people interact with a machine. The user includes hardware and software components. User interacts exist for various systems and provide a mean of input, allowing the users to manipulate a system, and output, allowing the system to indicate the effects of the user's manipulation. User interface. User may also interact with the operating system with some kind of software user interface, like typing commands by using command line interface or using a graphical user interface. For handheld and desktop computers, the user interface is generally considered part of the operating system. On large multi-user systems such as Unix-like systems, the user interface is generally implemented as an application program that runs outside the operating system. In a simple language, we can understand a user interface is the mediator between the user and the computer. It is a medium between the user or the machine. Now, here is a classification is based on the type of interface operating system provides for the user to work in. Command user interface, or we can say character user interface, or we can say command line interface, which is also known as CUI or CLI. Here the user has to type the commands on the command prompt to get the work completed. For examples, DOS and Unix. In graphical user interface, which is also known as GUI, here the user need not to type any command. He or she just simply type or point or click on the desired icon to get the work done. For example, Windows 9X, XP, NT 2000, Linux, etc. Next, we study command line interface, which is also known as character user interface or CUI. CLI are often used by programmers and system administrators in engineering and scientific environment and by technically advanced personal computers. For example of CLI applications are the Unix and the DOS. This kind of interface requires the user to type commands in order to interact with the computer system. This type of interface is not a good choice for the beginners, as they have to memorize a good range of different commands. A command line is a space on the display screen in which commands are typed by the user. Here the advantages of command line interface. Number 1. Direct communication with computer system. 2. not restricted to a number of predetermined options. Number 3. Simple interface using keyboard only. Number 4. Faster response. Just because it is a command line interface, that is why it provides a faster response. And the disadvantages: number 1, there is no need to learn a number of or long complex command. Number 2, need to type in the command where we can make the possible or the number of errors. Number 3, slow having to type in commands every time. Let's see, or we can say CUI is based on operating systems are less expensive. CUI not need much RAM to run. CUI takes a smaller hard disk space. CUI uses only keyboard for navigation and operation, often resulting in faster performance. CUI uses less system resources in compared to GUI. Now, GUI. A graphical user interface, or GUI, pronounced as GUI, is a type of user interface item that allows people to interact with programs in more ways than typing, such as computers. For example, handheld devices such as MP3 players, portable media players, or gaming devices, household applications, and office equipments with images rather than text commands. A GUI offers graphical icons and visual indicators as opposed to text-based interface. Typed command labels or text navigation to fully represent the information and actions available to a user. This interface is a graphics-based and interactive in nature. Different devices such as mouse, keyboard, etc. are used to interact with the system. GUI is more friendly in comparison to CLI or CUI. Here, it doesn't require the user to memorize the commands. Here, the user uses different menus and options to communicate with the system. For example, the actions are performed through direct manipulations of the graphical elements. Your picture tend to make the interface more intuitive. The popular example of GUI is Windows. Now, see the advantages of GUI. GUI is much attractive or appealing. Only need to click on one simple picture. It is much easier for the invoice. Third, several instructions are placed by one icon. No need to understand how computer systems work. It is more easier to learn and more user-friendly due to presence of various graphical elements like menus, buttons, icons, etc. Here, with GUI, a user does not have to learn the complicated commands. In GUI, users have windows that allows a user to work, view, control, and manipulate multiple programs and folders at the same time. GUI supports the use of both a mouse and a keyboard to control and navigate through your system. In GUI, the user mostly gets immediate visual feedback of the icon or the action is doing. For example, User can see immediately that a file is successfully moved from one directory to another. In GUI, multiple tasks can run simultaneously at the same time. Now, the disadvantages of GUI. It is wasteful of computer memory. If user wants to communicate with proper computer system directly, GUI is effectively more complex. It requires more RAM to run. It requires more system resources to load the various graphical elements such as icon, fonts, etc. GUI is still a bit slower than CUI because it uses both mouse and keyboard. And GUI occupies much larger amount of hard disk space as compared to CUI. It is based operating systems are more expensive as users have to pay the license fee. I hope you all understand about the GUI and CUI, the advantages and the disadvantages. Here we can see the comparison between the CUI versus GUI. Let's see CUI. CUI is character user interface, whereas GUI is graphical user interface. Next, in CUI, user interacts with the applications by making use of commands. In GUI, user interacts with applications by making use of graphics. In CUI, only one task can run at a time. In GUI, we can run more than one task simultaneously. In CUI, everything is done by using commands, whereas in GUI, user interacts by pointing the applications using devices like mouse. For examples of CUI is DOS and Unix, and GUI examples are Windows and Linux. I hope it is more clear to understand what is user interface, about graphical user interface and command line interface or character user interface. In next week I will give you in next class I will provide you the exercises of this chapter. I hope you all understood this chapter. Thank you.